Socrates once famously said, "To know thyself is the beginning of all wisdom." And one of the best ways to know thyself is to understand your own emotional intelligence, or what we call EQ, the hot new thing here. Welcome to the Painted Porch. I am Amy Yakowski, and I am so blessed and happy to be here with my trusty Painted Porch team. I have our Chief Joy Officer, Sierra Ram Cantrell, and our Master of Communication, Rob Hunter. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So today we're talking about EQ. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, where we dove into a little bit of an introduction to what EQ is and what it most importantly is not, and how it compares to what you would consider cognitive abilities like IQ. EQ is all centered on your emotions, because as much as we like to think that we are thinking beings with emotions, the truth is we are emotional people who think. And those emotions can show up in all the different ways in our lives and in our work. How we think about ourselves, how we share and celebrate ideas, how we work together with other people, how we make decisions, and how we manage the uncertainties and stress that, I don't know if you've been paying attention, this big old world of ours can provide. So what I wanted to do today was just take a little bit of time and maybe dig a little bit deeper into EQ, knowing that there is not a test at the end where I am going to ask you to tell me everything that you learned here today. I wanted to touch on a little bit more about EQ and why it is so vital and important to you as an individual, as a leader, as a team member, as a mom, as a dad, as a friend, as a colleague, why EQ can have such a profound impact in who you are, how you show up, how you share ideas, how you collaborate, how you communicate, and how you can move and make change happen in your life and work. So Sierra and Rob, when we think about EQ, what was one of the first things maybe that popped up to you as we were talking about EQ last week that was really kind of an interesting point that we learned about?
Well, I learned a lot about what it was. Initially, when you said EQ, I was worried it was going to be a vision test, and I knew I would fail that one. But, I feel like when you were talking about it, and especially when you were talking about the assessment and then really looking at what your personal assessment meant, it was like, instead of trying to guess where the fish are going to be, you're bringing me the barrel to fish in, right? Well, fishing analogy for you. Instead of just casting a wide net and trying to figure out what I need to work on to do better at life, you're actually going to bring me a really focused thing of like, okay, here's some areas that could be improved, and then how do we do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. You're right. The EQ, one of the beauties of it, what it really is there for, number one, it's not a test. It is an assessment. It's not measuring, you don't pass or fail EQ, but you're exactly right. What it's doing is it's shining a spotlight on the different areas of you and how emotions are showing up and playing a role in how you are navigating this crazy world that we're a part of. It gives you that awareness instead of guessing, to your exact point, Sierra, saying, you know what, I think I need to work on this. I think maybe I'm a little too assertive or maybe not assertive enough. What it will do is, through these questions that have been scientifically developed and tested over many, many years and compared against different ages and genders, geographical areas, roles. It's compiling a lot of data that can help then show you, you know what, here's where you are today. It's you are here. But then through that, being able to have a roadmap of where you then want to go and some of the ways that you can, some of the tools that you can learn, some of the techniques, some of the methods through our services and our coaching, some of the things that you can do to help maybe dial something up a little bit where it might be a little low or it could be a little bit better, as well as occasionally dial it down when maybe it's a little too much, being a little extra in some areas within EQ.
Rob, what about you?
This is an investment. And we think of investments, we often think about stocks. You or your broker buy stocks for long-term growth. this EQ assessment is that for you. This is an investment in you, because I don't think we talk about that enough. Because ultimately, at some point in life, for me, it was like 38, 39. I knew I had to change because I was headed down this negative path. I was depressed, thinking negative thoughts. So I knew at some point, thanks to this lady right here, that investing in myself was a huge barrier, because you don't think that you should or could. So you just assume, at least I did, that my life was going to be this way forever. So I didn't have the EQ test 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But I did take it now, and what it showed in my assessment, not a test, is how far I've grown, how much I've grown, how much my confidence has grown, how much my self-respect has grown because I invested in myself. So this right here is now a snapshot of where I am, my EQ assessment. Mm-hmm. And now, like you just said, Amy, now I know where I need to go. What can I work on? What can I dial back? What can I dial up? Because I took the time to invest in myself.
And that is the beauty of EQ as opposed to something like IQ. IQ is fixed. I think the latest says that you peak at 17. Whatever your IQ is at 17, that's what it is. It's a cognitive proficiency test. Whereas EQ, it's your emotions. Your emotions are something that you can hone, that you can cultivate, that you can nurture, and that you can learn to, as the Stoics like to say, domesticate. One of the things with emotions, we tend to say, oh, put your emotions aside when you're dealing with maybe a certain bristly situation, or maybe even something in work or in business. But the truth is that your emotions are always there. You can't put them aside, but it's being able to have that awareness, that understanding of how they're playing a role and how they're showing up for you in your life and in your work. That is so valuable. And with the EQ, number one, having that snapshot in time, here's where you're at now. But just like Rob said, you can evolve, you can adapt, you can develop, you can hone skills that are going to help you thrive and be more successful in your relationships, either in work or in life, especially if you're playing a leadership role, whether formally or just by virtue of what role you're playing in your job, or as a mom or as a dad.
And Amy, my scientific research verifies that my emotional intelligence has improved since the age of 17. So
well, give yourself a pat on the back.
Give me an example. You ever lose control of your emotions? You ever speak out in anger? Yes. Yell at someone, say something you regret? That's what we're talking about here, that real everyday life application. It isn't always anger, but sometimes you're in that meeting and it's your turn to present an idea and you get nervous and you muff it because you're nervous, because your nerves impact what you say, how you think. That's what this assessment really is about. It's like, oh, how do those emotions not only impact what you say, but how do those emotions impact what you say about yourself? Because I know in doing some work on anger, as the Stoic Marcus Aurelius would appreciate, did he write On Anger?
Seneca did.
Seneca wrote On Anger. He was proud too. So I took because I had this outburst and I was like, where did all this come from? Well, it turned out it was very personal and very internal. So the only reason I could figure that out is by this investment in myself and saying, okay, how big of an impact do my emotions have on not only my perception of myself, but how is that perception impacting, say, my wife or say our friend Sierra? Because that's gold for a human being, right? This is like you're opening the bank vault and all the riches are in there. You just have to be willing to put the combination in the lock and open it up and take a look.
And actually, that's perfect that you bring that up, because Rob, the first two scales that we're going to be talking about knowing thyself, the first two scales on this EQ are about yourself. So Amy, what are the first two? There's 5 scales total. What are the first 2 scales that you look at in this assessment?
Yeah. So the first 2 scales, you're exactly right. It's all about knowing thyself. It starts with the self. The first one is self-perception. What type of inner strength and confidence do you have within yourself? To Rob's exact point, there are times where you didn't show up. You know how we say, oh, I wasn't my best self there. But often we just throw that aside as, oh, maybe I was hungry or I didn't sleep well or whatever it might be. But the truth is there's probably some underlying factors there that, without bringing awareness to it through something like an EQ assessment or doing some really deep personal introspection on your own, that you won't recognize, you won't spot. So with that self-perception, it really looks at three key areas. It's your self-regard. How do you view yourself? How do you regard yourself? Do you have respect? Do you understand what your strengths and your weaknesses are? What is your self-regard? I think about one of our clients that we worked with recently. The way he was showing up in meetings with his executives was he was a little bit, he held back. He wasn't as assured of himself. And once he took the EQ assessment, it illuminated, yeah, you know what, your self-regard is actually a little bit lower than what you might need it to be in order to be an effective leader. Because if you don't have trust in yourself and what you can excel at, or where you might struggle or where you might strive, then how are you going to then effectively communicate and collaborate with other people? It all starts with the self. After that, we have the self-regard, the self-actualization. And this is all about whether or not you're open to and willing to grow, to learn, to pursue something that is meaningful in your life. We think about that when it comes to your mindset. And are you willing to try something new, or are you maybe a little bit hesitant because you're unsure of yourself? Again, it all goes back to whether or not you are even clear about what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then the third one that we have is emotional self-awareness. Do you understand what your emotions are? Do you understand where and how they might show up for yourself personally, how you talk to yourself, how it's controlling, as Rob mentioned, how it's controlling how you're communicating during a meeting? Are you getting a little worked up and it just comes out? You just spew it out and then whoops, you can't get that back in, can't put that back in the bottle. It's having that emotional self-awareness. So that way, as we said earlier with the Stoics, you can domesticate your emotions and use them to your advantage. Use them so that they are helping you do better, to be better, to lead better, to communicate better, to work through problems better. Having those emotions and having that emotional awareness is what EQ can help do for you.
Fantastic. So those are the first two.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because, we've all been through different, like whether it's through a corporation, but there's all these different variations. But usually it starts with like the big old team of people, right? And let's look at the big old team. We're not starting with the big old team. We're starting with the self and how you see yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And surprisingly, you would think that everybody sees them as clear as day, but that is not the usual case. Usually the way we see ourselves and the way other people see us, there's a little bit of a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
But also understanding, and I think a lot of times people think the word emotional and they might tie things to that. They might think, oh, that's a very female trait, or they might think, oh, I'm not a super emotional type of person. Just because you don't cry in public doesn't mean that you don't have emotions that impact you. And it ties perfectly with everything that we do here on the Painted Porch. We have a three-pronged approach of looking at the person or the organization holistically. But we look at it from a leadership standpoint, from a communication standpoint, and a mindfulness standpoint. The three of us bring a unique mindset. But really, you can't, with emotional intelligence and improving yourself, you can't, it's not like just, oh, I just want to get my abs a little better, so I'm going to work on my low abs. You can't just target one little tiny thing of the low abs. You kind of got to work on everything. We got to look at all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or it's not just diet, it's also exercise, or it's not wholly exercise. You have to also recognize and understand and have knowledge of what you're consuming, right? Or how your energy is being maintained and recharged when you think about it from a body perspective. The same thing is true when we think about our emotions. How are we maintaining those emotions? How are we keeping them in check? How are we not pulling a hammy when we are expressing ourselves or sharing our ideas with other people? And that's where that EQ, this assessment, can help bring light, bring awareness to that. So that way You have your own personalized fitness plan, but the fitness is your emotional fitness. And even more importantly, that emotional fitness is your holistic fitness, the fitness of yourself, of how you are expressing your ideas, how you're working with other people, how you're making decisions, and how you're managing stress. Those are all areas. It's that holistic view of you and all the elements that you interact with in your life and work.
Okay, when you guys say holistic, what does that mean? Like, you thinking as far as what? Like, when I'm sitting here like, okay, as a human being, okay, I know holistic healthcare, I know all these things. What does that mean?
So holistic just is looking at the whole picture.
Yeah.
Literally like whole, right?
Even though it's not spelled with the
Exactly
W,
right.
it kind of throws you off because there's no W in holistic. But yes, it's looking at the whole. You're exactly right, Sierra. When you think about, I know I've been through them. You both in your world and in your corporate worlds have gone through them as well. When you go through these trainings, they tend to be very narrowly focused. Even leadership training, it's how do you give feedback? How do you have your one-on-ones? How can you show up as a mentor or as a coach to other people? But all of that, in order to be successful with it, starts with the self.
Yes.
How you are perceiving yourself directly impacts how you show up, lead, encourage, support, give feedback, make decisions with other people.
And who can't relate to that, right? Because I think deep down we all know that, but we get into that rut where we don't know what to do. And I was one of those people who maybe like you're just like, there's got to be a better way than this. I just don't know what to do. Like, this is that first great place to start. And even if you have started your personal development journey, this is a good sort of, where am I? And you can fine tune, like you said earlier, Amy, which direction you want to go, which skills you want to hone, because knowing thyself, I think, is a skill. It is the most important skill because it ties to all the other things that you do, all your other human interactions, which is where the communication and mindfulness and the teamwork elements of Painted Porch Strategies come in, is that's really all of life, because communication is something that humans being do different than all other animals. Sure, dolphins and whales can communicate, but it's different. We're navigating emotions through our communication. And every time you have an interaction at home, at work, it's a potential volatile mix of misinterpretations or things that were said unclearly or things that were said too emotionally that would impact, say, Amy, if I said it that way. That's really where this is not like, oh, you do this EQ and you're solved. No, but it's like, okay, I loved what you said, a roadmap, right? We like to talk about blueprints here on the porch. So all of our programs, all of our coaching revolves around, where do you want to go? Let's build the blueprint of the house, and then we'll start building the house. This is a perfect way for you to get a blueprint of what your life looks like from a self-regard and emotional standpoint.
Yeah.
I've done it, and that's why I highly recommend it.
Yeah, Rob, you have done it.
Yeah.
And so just to ease anybody's fears, just tell me, like, is it going to take me 6 hours to do? Is it going to be like questions I don't know? Is it going to ask me for my astrological sign? I mean, give me like the nitty gritty here.
I might ask your astrological sign. I'm not sure if that impacts your emotions, but it's literally like 15 minutes. You go through and you answer as honestly as you can, and throw out all the rules that you think about taking an assessment, because sometimes we want to kind of mitigate, and we'll pick sometimes. Do what you feel, because this will really figure out, if you're downplaying yourself by selling your answers short instead of being honest, because I think sometimes, again, our own brains,
our own self-regard,
get in the way, right? So 15 minutes, you're in, you're out. The assessment gets shipped off. Amy gets a look at it, and then you guys can connect after and see where you're at, right? To start building that blueprint in a direction to go.
Yep. And through that, we have a couple different ways that we approach it. There's a few different versions of the assessment itself, depending upon what it is you're looking for. And we would work through that when we had our consult call. You can just book a call with me, and we can talk through what your goals are, what you're trying to discover or understand, or maybe a particular issue or problem that you want to address. And then from there, we can look and determine what's the best EQ assessment for you, whether it's you just as you, if it's you as a leader within a team, or some sort of 360 that you'd like to see from a leadership perspective to get other people's insights as well as your own when you take the EQ.
And
So,
Amy, where do they find that to schedule that?
yep. So it's right on our website. If you go to onthepaintedporch.com, you'll see a link right at the top to schedule just a quick, 10, 15-minute call, no obligations. It's just for us to chat and see if EQ is right for you. Although I will say, spoiler, it's right for everyone. It's just whether or not it's the right time for you or the right path that you want to go down. But ultimately, what this is here to do is just to give you that picture, that snapshot, so you can then develop, as Rob said, you can design a blueprint for you of how you can optimize your EQ in your life and your work, because it has been shown to have somewhere between a 25 and 45% impact on your success in your life and work.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
and like we were saying too, a lot of these other things focus on like the big enchilada, like the whole team or whatever. But what I have learned is teams change, situations change, but wherever you go, there you are, right? You are the one constant in your life and every team that you're a part of. So by investing in yourself, you are investing in your number one asset that never goes away. This isn't it. Developing this EQ is investing in yourself. And that is something that you keep with you as long as your spirit is inside this physical body. Mm-hmm. So instead of treat yourself, like on our favorite show, Parks and Rec, treat yourself, we're going to invest in yourself, which means this is not something retail that is temporary. You don't grow out of that piece of clothing or throw those shoes away. This is an investment in yourself. This is a lifelong investment that's going to impact your life and help you show up better. Hello, no brainer.
Win-win.
Well, and I think that this is an opportunity to take action for yourself, because I think societally, we're kind of conditioned not to, as if that's a bad idea. But I can tell you personally what this investment has meant to me in myself, because I see things a lot more clearly now. I say things a lot more clearly now. I'm much more confident in my ability to say those things, all because I decided to take action. And it's weird because I think we all fundamentally know that, yet we always hesitate to take action. So if you take action, you're taking action by watching this. You're already interested in it. So if you're taking action for yourself, no one can beat you ever, because you're saying, I'm going to take action. And here's what you also know. You're already in the top 10% of people, because 90% of people will never take action.
Nope.
They'll just assume that this is the way life is and there's nothing they can do about it. Well, there is something you can do about it. And you can really turn life into happening for you, not against you. And it could be this first step for you by getting your EQ assessment to go, okay, now I know what I need to work on.
So if you want to know more about EQ, emotional intelligence, you're going to go to our website, which is onthepaintedporch.com. Amy's going to post a direct link there, how you can get straight to that. There's lots of choices that you can do, but let me tell you, like, this could be a game changer for you, because this is investing in yourself, investment that always will be with you.
Yep. And we'll be right there with you along the way. That's the beauty of this. It's not just taking the assessment and then, okay, good luck. What we do when we have this, you take the assessment, we sit down, we go over the results, we come up with that blueprint, we design the blueprint of where you want to go next. And then we're there to help support you through our lessons that we have, our programs, through one-on-one coaching, all of that to help you effectively know yourself and show up as your best self in life and work and all of those places in between, so that you, therefore, Sarah, to your point, you are creating the environment where you best shine and thrive, instead of being dependent on what others are or aren't doing. You are in the driver's seat of your own journey.
So drive, have the courage to drive. And then that's what I would advocate. Yeah. Well, and I do think this really, what I think the brilliant design, and I'm going to give Amy a compliment here, of how Painted Porch Strategies comes to be, it is like the master key to life, right? Because in order to unlock your potential, I know that's a cheesy reference, but you need the key, and the key has to fit, but you got to shape the key. And this is all that work that shapes the key to fit into your lock, and whatever your lock is, to unlock it, to really show us, give us your gift of what you have. So that's why I would recommend to you to take action.
Well, I would second that notion.
Likewise, I third it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So on that note, if you want to learn more about EQ, what it is, definitely check out our other videos as well, but schedule a call, we'll chat, we'll explore and see where you would like to take you next. And we'll be there along that journey here on the Painted Porch. So until next time, thanks for joining us. And if you have any questions, post them in the comments. We'd love to keep the conversation going here as well as one-on-one. So we'll see you next time.